Welcome back to the Behind the Play podcast. My name is Alex Adams, and I am joined by the voice of the Belleville Senators, someone that I've got to know pretty well over the past year, the one and only David Foote of the Belleville Senators. I don't know, you have like a million jobs, so I didn't know what title to give you, David. So we'll let you do that, and thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me. I think the business card says manager of broadcast and communications, so we can go
Okay.
with that. Yeah, jack of all trades, master of none, maybe. I don't know. It's yeah, it's a lot of hats, but it's a good time. So
You're like that middle six forward that is on the power play a bit, on the PK,
the
plays like
utility guy, right? Like you get
exactly.
that signing, you just need to shore up the roster. You sign a guy who can do a little bit of everything, right? So
Exactly.
yeah.
Before I kind of get started about your job and everything else and the Senators, I'm curious for you, maybe just tell the listeners and even me myself a little bit about your story and how you got into journalism and what was maybe the moment for you where you first thought that you might want to go into journalism and maybe even specifically like the sports world.
Yeah, I think for me, the play-by-play has always been the goal. Like that's it never really was, oh, I want to be a sports reporter. I want to call games. I want to be a play-by-play announcer. So it started pretty young for me. Like I would mute my PlayStation and just start doing it myself that way because the names pop up on the screen and you didn't really, even if it's just in your head, that's what I always kind of used to do. My cousins, will tell me all the time now, oh, remember back when we used to all play and you would do, right? So it's like it kind of started then. And then I think from there you realize, well, what's the route to that? Because it's
Hmm.
such a tough thing to get to and get into. Figured out that broadcast journalism was probably the best way to get there. Ended up at Loyalist College here in Belleville in 2005 after making the decision to choose the college over some of the university programs that I had gotten into. At the time, Loyalist had a really strong media wing, radio, TV, print, photo. It was kind of a good jumping off point for young journalists because the staff there was unbelievable. And then basically, a combination of learning and hard work and a bounce here or there. Um, I kind of dove right into things, obviously, when school started. And they kind of told us on day one, if we had 60 people in our class, they kind of said, look to your left and look to your right. Odds are by Christmas, one of those people isn't going to be in the class anymore. And they weren't wrong. I think we graduated 15 or 20
Oh my
people a
God.
couple of years later, right? So they kind of put that in you that like you're gonna have to do the work. You're gonna have to set yourself apart that way, and that's kind of what I did. So just did what my professors told me. Did as well as I could in our early air checks, etc. And then ended up applying for a job at the school radio station, 91X, my first summer, and got it. So stayed in Belleville, did morning news on the college radio station. Ended up meeting one of my best friends now that summer as well. End of that summer, the news director at CJBQ here in Belleville at the time gave me a call, said, "Hey, we need someone to do weekend news." I said, "Sure, that's a good start." CJBQ had the Belleville Bulls at the time. They were doing Wellington Dukes, Trenton Golden Hawks games at the time, so um, that was kind of an obvious yes. Again, one of those things they tell you, right? Any opportunity you have to get your foot in the door, no pun intended, you get your foot in the door. And so this, so it started with basically giving up my weekends all through college. And then as that job kind of progressed, Jack Miller was the sports director, still is here in Belleville at Quinny Broadcasting. He's about to retire after 51 years now, which is
Oh my God.
incredible. So yeah, shout out to Jack. But he kind of had given me the opportunity to start doing some junior A games. Eventually, the person who had been doing those games left, so I started doing junior A games. Jack was on city council here in Belleville for quite
Hmm.
some time. Had to be off the air while the campaign was happening, so I filled in for him a little bit on the Bulls radio broadcast. So that's kind of how I started doing OHL stuff. That eventually morphed into OHL TV stuff for the Bulls.
Yeah.
Um, and then I ended up in Peterborough for a couple of years. It's kind of a long story. I don't know if you
Hmm.
want how long of
Yeah.
a version you want, but
Yeah, but I'm curious for you, like when you're going through the grind of you're doing some news, you're doing, you're trying to get junior A games and you get to the OHL, but it's all kind of in flux a little bit. What's your guiding light that kind of keeps motivating you? Is it like, hey, I want to be this, I want to be that, or did you feel like, hey, I love it so much, I'm just trying to get as many reps as possible? Like what was going through your mind in those years?
yeah, I think we all kind of have that love of the game mentality, right? Like, doesn't matter if it's a crappy circumstance, situation, time of day, weather, whatever. We're a lot of us, yourself included, are going to weather that storm to do what you set out to do. I think for me, it's just always been a goal to call games either at the major league level or for a major network. And knowing how few of these jobs are available, it was just kind of like keep doing it, keep doing games, keep getting those reps. Keep putting your demo out there, or when people are looking, apply for jobs just to get heard, sort of thing. And that was really it. I think I learned pretty early that it was going to be a long road. It wasn't going to
Hmm.
be a jump to the NHL when you're 25 type deal. Like that doesn't happen for broadcasters typically,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So yeah, I think I just kind of buckled up and said, let's get as many games as we can at as many different levels as we can, and go from there. And I mean, I was doing football on community TV for a bit. I did basketball games before I ever called a hockey game.
Hmm.
When I was at Loyalist, I was doing Lancers basketball, and I miss calling basketball games. So
Hmm.
um, yeah, again, you kind of learn that you're going to need to be versatile to get a job in the first place, and then you're going to need to be good at it to keep your job, and that you're going to have to learn some stuff along the way as well.
Like through your journey, because you've probably called thousands of games at this point. Obviously, every Belleville Senators game, and then in the past, as you've talked about. But like, what are areas that you were trying to improve upon as you started, and how did you kind of maybe hone in on your craft of being a play-by-play announcer?
It's kind of interesting to look back on it, right? Because you don't think back too much to the start. You're just kind of so used to doing it every day, and I'll say going through the motions, but it's a habit by now, right? There's a game coming up. I know what I need to do to be ready and to feel ready and then to execute. Whereas I think early on, it's a lot of trying to get yourself into that pattern, that rhythm of what's going to work for you and what's going to make sure that you put out the best product that you can. So from learning what a prep sheet should look like, and what it should look like to you, because they're different for
Yeah,
everybody. You know, what type of things are important to research? What are the things that I know I need to have to get through the game if it goes normally? And then what else am I going to need in case things go off the rails and glass breaks or
yeah,
etc. So just yeah, I think that was probably the biggest thing, is just learning. Like, there's no guidebook, there's no handbook to say here's how you do play by play. It's just you got to figure it out, right? and
yeah.
and I think it's a lot of figuring out that process for yourself, I think.
I know for me, and I don't think I've had this conversation with you before, but I know Kyle Bukauskas pretty well, and he loves, like, I remember him talking to us about how much he loved, I think it was the Fox Super Bowl, and like just like the mechanics of a broadcast, and I guess for you, and not even, was there a person that you looked up to growing up that, you tried to emulate a little bit, or felt like, okay, that's the peak of being a play-by-play guy, or a woman, of course, and that's what I'm trying to attain. Obviously, you don't want to mimic them exactly, but there was someone that you looked up to, and it's like, hey, that's where the standard I want to get to.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a handful of them you've had on your show, which is, part of why I feel lucky you
Yeah.
asked me to be on
Well,
here.
thank
But
you. Yeah.
yeah, like for me, someone like Dan Schulman is
Yeah,
incredible in his versatility, and I know lots of guys are like that, right? That was always a thing for me was um, I don't want to be just a hockey guy, right? And I know a lot of the big names in Canada are not just hockey guys. There's just a
for
lot of
sure.
hockey. So that's what they
Yeah.
call, right? So, um, yeah, big Dan Shulman guy. Really like Chris Cuthbert. I think that's one that's always been somebody that I followed from the get go. I mean, the goats are the goats here, the ones you hear all the time, right?
Hmm.
Your Gord Millers, etc. So I grew up in a Leafs household. And I'm a big Joe Bowen fan, and
Yeah.
there's probably a little bit of maybe not the sound, but the way that I call a game that might mix in from him. I think it's all you watch so much sports just by osmosis. I think you're going to
Yeah.
gather some of that, right? So, and then just going back to the video games, Jim Houston, obviously when he was the voice
Yeah.
of the NHL EA Sports franchise. That was kind of the core of my, the core memories of me starting my route to broadcasting. So he would have been one of the first voices to go, oh man, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you were the voice of a video game? Like that'd be awesome.
What's the challenge for you? Like you talk about those guys and obviously in Belleville, like you're by yourself. You're solo. Like that's a very different way of doing a broadcast compared to obviously having a color analyst beside you. What have you noticed of that challenge of trying to, as you said, the glass breaks and it's just you for 15 minutes? And obviously you've done this for a long time, so I'm sure you don't get nervous or you feel pretty comfortable with it. But like what goes into that that's different from being in a two-man booth or a two-person booth that you've noticed?
ah, I think you try to have a lot of stuff on tape. Right? Like, if there's pre-recorded interviews, they're just in a folder on the computer or they're in my mixer and they're ready to go. So worst case, you can just throw to that, right? We'll be back in a minute, and maybe that's kind of the beauty of our setup in Belleville is that I'm producing the show, I'm calling the game, I'm doing the commercial logs beforehand. So there's no like I fly the ship. If I want to land, I land. If I want to go around, I go around. It's like you don't have to worry about going back and forth with somebody in a control room. You don't have to worry about uh, you know what else might have to run over the course of that broadcast, whether it's commercial, etc. So that's one easy way. And I think the other way, and it's something I like to do just generally speaking, and maybe I do because I get distracted relatively easily, but just look around the rink. What's happening in the building? What do you smell? What do you
Hmm.
hear?
Hmm.
What's something, what's happening with the situation, i.e., glass breaks? Here's what the crew is doing, over here. It looks like they're almost done. Meanwhile, over on the Belleville Sens bench, Dave Bell is giving a real good talking to one of his young players or something like that, right? Um, our whole job is unscripted for the most part, even though we may have a sense of what might happen. So it's literally just about looking around and trying to find interesting things to talk about.
What's that line for you? Because you do work for the team, right? And typically like broadcasters, especially play by play, are pretty neutral, right? But you talked about Joe Bowen. You know who Joe Bowen's like cheering
Sure.
for and rooting for, and I can tell from watching your broadcast, like you are, you know, the voice of the Belleville Senators and fans, right? And what's that process like for you? Like, do you feel like you have to go all the way, not complete fan, but like all homer versus trying to be more neutral? Is that something you think about often? Like, what goes into that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny because if you go back to the pathway when I was doing Bulls games on TV for Kojiko, now your TV. And I believe the OHL has the same setup. It's the home team produces the broadcast, but
Yeah.
it's shown everywhere. So even though this is an extremely local Belleville community crew, they were always in our ear about don't forget the people in Windsor are watching this too if you're playing the Spitfires, or don't forget the people in Oshawa are watching this too if you're playing the
Hmm.
Generals. So there was very much that kind of. Even I was out with TSN there a couple months ago at the WHL Championship, and that's just a network up the middle broadcast. Get excited for good hockey.
Yeah.
I think for me, it was a learning experience in the sense that, yeah, I think you have to stray away maybe from that analytical side a little bit more. You're not dissecting mistakes. You're not necessarily leaning on the 0 for 40 stretch that the power play is on, for
Or
example,
whatever.
whatever
Yeah.
it may be, right? You're just focusing a lot more on the positive, on the big performances, the key plays, and then that development pathway that we are lucky enough to have being in the AHL, to kind of tell those stories of those players that are trying to make that next jump.
Is that difficult for you? Because I can only reference myself as someone who's, knows people that work for the team, now friends with like I know Ian Mendez, who's been very kind to both of us, and obviously he's your now colleague the
Yeah.
past year, but right, he was a journalist and then now he's working for the team and it's a bit different, right? The
Mhm.
lines change, right? And for me, I find if I was in your position or Ian's position, I mean, obviously he's comms, but in terms of like, I would want to be like, hey, like their power play has been shitty for 2 months, and this is my take on it. Like that would be very instinctual for me to be like that urge. Like, do you find that's a bit of the case, even though like at the same time, like you're with the players all the time. I'm sure you love the players because you get to know them well, right? So like you obviously and you want the team to succeed for everything else. But is there a part of you that's also a bit conflicted where you think, at the same time, like they're not playing well in on this game in Utica or wherever, and I want to say something.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there is that line, right? You have to be honest. If things aren't going well, you can't say they're going fantastic.
Yeah,
So for me, it's always kind of been like, all right, if they're 0 for 30 in whatever the category is going into the game, maybe on the first power play they have, you mention it. But then after that, if they're 0 for 3 on the night, you don't keep going, they're 0 for 43, they're 0 for 44.
yeah,
Whereas if they're on a power play goal streak of 25 games, then you're going to mention that as much as you can with, as well trying to avoid the broadcaster jinx, I suppose. But like,
yeah.
that's kind of one of the easiest ways for me. And like, I've learned some lessons I think I'm going into year 5 now working with the team. So like, I've learned some lessons over the years from maybe saying something that a player heard and wasn't happy with, or a question that was maybe asked um, that maybe could have been framed in a different way given the position. So I definitely think there is that line to cross, but it's about finding that balance between being honest with what you're watching, so that you're not lying to people, but also because it is the Belleville Senators broadcast, my job is to make the Belleville Senators sound good and look good. Um, so that's kind of what you
Yeah.
shoot for, I guess.
And you do, but and I guess moving on to that, like you talked about asking players, asking the coach questions, like how difficult, like as someone that has seen you behind the scenes a couple times, like your work ethic is second to none. But I guess for you, what's that challenge of doing a broadcast, doing the post game, doing all the comms notes, do like everything all at once, uh, and trying to do it as well as you can?
Yeah, it's a challenge. That is the challenge, right? Pull off 72 games, and get all that stuff done. Um, I've been lucky to have, I do have help on game days, right? I have usually a couple of people helping with whatever the tasks may be to kind of take that load off. So it is a little bit more of a team effort than maybe it comes off as sometimes. But like as an example, on the road, um, it is just me basically. So if it's a game day, I'm doing the pregame interviews, I'm recording my footnote segment and editing that and sending it back to be sent off, and then prepping for the game, and then yeah, it is a lot for sure. My wife and I have boiled it down to like if we're on the road, The game ends, and I'll go, all right, time to scramble. I'll talk to you in a bit. And that's it. And then from there, it's like, pack up the gear. And it's a simple setup, but it's still a fair amount of stuff to get packed up and take with you, right? Pack up the gear, run downstairs, make sure the camera's set up and turned on. There's a card in there, there's a battery, right? Who do we need? What are we going to ask them? Oh, there's other media there today. Sweet. You guys just going to jump in with my scrum, or do you need a one-on-one? You kind of just get it done. Meantime, half the guys are already walking to the bus with their meal containers because it's 10:30 and everyone wants to get out of Laval or wherever you might be. So
Yeah.
it can be a challenge. But I think just like communication is always key, right? Dan Superis is our team services coordinator who is always downstairs. So I just kind of keep a connection with him. Hey, here's who we're looking for. Hey, here's who might be here tonight, who they're looking for. And he's pretty good at helping try to wrangle guys when needed. But it's a challenge for sure.
What have you noticed as someone that's, been part of the Senators and obviously Belleville Senators organization, but what have you seen in terms of a difference between, the previous regime in terms of ownership to now with Michael Andlauer in the past, 2 years of his reign?
I think a lot of it is pretty apparent. I think what you guys see in Ottawa is what we're seeing. I think in the organization, there's a different kind of sense of pride. It seems like Steve Staios and company have talked about, right? They want players and staff to be proud to work for the Ottawa Senators, to show up to the rink, whether it's here or in Belleville, and to be proud to wear that Senators logo and put forward, again, the best job that we can. So um, I don't think I've noticed too much, large scale. We've been going about our business here in Belleville. We've definitely had a lot more, I'll say, connection with the NHL club. And you mentioned Ian, and I think Ian and his staff deserve a lot of credit for that. In terms of myself, at least. Yeah, I think it's just a general attitude shift that people can just kind of tell that the winds of change have blown through and that positive times are ahead. And everyone's really optimistic. I mean, we're pumped in Belleville to see this next wave of prospects come through and to help them get to Ottawa and hopefully bring a Stanley Cup back to the nation's capital. So um, the goal is the same, and I think everything you've seen up from Michael Andlauer and Steve Staios and company is what we've been seeing here as well.
What's the challenge? I know we've talked about it just maybe, off air, of course, about trying to grow the brand of the Belleville Senators in Belleville. Obviously, it was such an esteemed OHL team. Like I loved the Bulls as a kid, and everything. But what's that challenge for you? Because I know you're trying to really kind of improve the grassroots, and that's taken a bit of a turn under the new ownership as well. What are you guys trying to do in Belleville, and how are you trying to make it, a bigger Senators set town, I guess?
Yeah, it's I mean, just being here is number one, and I think for me, just trying to convince people. It sounds silly to say, right? To try and convince people to cheer for your hometown team. But there's still so much of that sentiment of, people miss junior hockey, they miss the Belleville Bulls. And, we went a lot of years here without really recognizing the history of that team in town, even though the Senators were the direct successor. So that's been one area where, there's definitely been a real focus to keep the Bulls, top of mind and just kind of remind people that it's all the same hockey history in the Bay of Quinte region and the city of Belleville. That's probably part of it too. Is we we market to the entire Bay of Quinte region, basically Coburg to Kingston, essentially, not just Belleville. So it's a pretty broad base of people that you're after. And one of the unfortunate parts of that, I suppose, is that we lean a little bit to the west, where there's a lot of Toronto Maple Leaf fans, as people know. So to not have a Senators affiliate here in town or any NHL affiliate here in town, um, where people have been choosing their own alliances their whole lives.
Yeah.
It's now you're in here trying to, as Chris Phillips said, turn fans over one Leaf jersey at a time. So like we had seen, go 2017, 18, Toronto Marlies come to town. There's 4,400 people in the rink. It's sold out, but 21, maybe 3,100 of them are Marlies fans. There's Leaf flags in the building. It's like what is this, right? Fast forward to now, and it's probably at least 60-40 Sens every night. The Go Sens Go chants are starting to drown out the Let's Go Marlies chants or whatever. So I think we're starting to see that impact a little bit. And I think just being here, like I said, is the biggest thing. People seeing us and being used to seeing the Senators around town makes a big difference. We've been really, really good at getting into the schools this year. I think we did 18 school visits
Wow.
this year, 3,000 students impacted that way all across the Bay of Quinte region. So doing our best to start them as Sens fans young and hope that they
Yeah.
continue to stay Sens fans as well. And then, as I always like to say, like, look, at the end of the day, we want you to cheer for the Senators in general. But if you want to cheer for the Toronto Maple Leafs, there's still no reason that you can't cheer for the Belleville Senators because they're never going to play each other.
Yeah.
So, trying to, I guess, pull on that, yeah, that grassroots community connection and balance that with being a professional hockey team affiliated with an NHL club.
You kind of alluded to the fact that the Belleville Senators can never play the Toronto Maple Leafs, but a lot of Belleville Senators might play the Toronto Maple Leafs at
Sure, they
some.
could.
And I'm curious for you, what's that been like for you to see so many guys? Obviously, there haven't been as many prospects in the past recent years that have just kind of graduated. That was more like the Batherson, Josh Norris, Eric Ridley Gregg was here for a while too, or in Belleville for a while. But what's it like for you to see guys that you see almost day to day, and their goal is obviously, to play well for the Belleville Senators, but is ultimately to go to Ottawa and to play in the NHL. How cool is it to see guys like succeed that you've been in and day out? And what's that kind of environment like when, you see guys get popped up to the NHL, on a almost weekly basis?
Yeah, it's neat. It's probably the best part of the job. If you talk to our head coach Dave Bell, he'll tell you that it's one of his favorite parts of the job is telling guys that they've gotten the call. We don't do as much of that like in the office when guys find out type stuff. Maybe we'll do some more of it, but yeah, to be able to see a guy walk out of the office or wherever it may be with that kind of different look on his face, that smile that you really know something big has happened, and then to shake their hand and send them off and say best of luck is a neat thing to be a part of that journey for a player. For us, it happens, maybe more frequently than a lot of other teams. And that's with first call-ups, I suppose. But anytime a guy gets called to Ottawa, we typically hate to see them leave because it means they were probably playing pretty well here. But
Mhm.
our goal is to support the Ottawa Senators and to make those players the best that they can be. So, it's always exciting when guys go up for sure.
Maybe to transition a little bit to the Belleville and obviously the team itself. And obviously there's been some turnover. Reinhardt, Angus Crookshank, they're gone. Signed some guys in free agency. Um, just how good do you think this Belleville Senators team can be? And maybe for Sens fans, like what are some guys that you think they should kind of keep a lookout for next season that could maybe be potentially called up?
Yeah, honestly, it's probably too early to say at this point. The club made a bunch of two-way signings, and a handful of AHL signings. So guys like Kean Washbarak will be back. Phil Daou, who just finished up his ELC and has signed an AHL deal because he got kind of set back by injuries. They'll be back in terms of guys to watch in Belleville. Um, but as far as call-ups and who ends up where, like that's a game that we play right until Ottawa breaks their camp, right?
Yeah.
Like you would assume that someone like Yakemchuk would end up in Belleville, barring a big time camp. And I think there's perhaps been some, there's been some discussion that could be the case. But I never like to predict our roster outside of what I know on paper. Even when I'm at things like development camp or out at training camp or rookie camp, like I don't really like to get on guys about coming to Belleville, right? I like to, and I feel like that's
Mhm.
kind of the way it should be, is leave them to try to make the NHL team, to chase that goal kind of distraction free, not put that seed of doubt maybe in their head, and then worry about it when they get to the AHL. Which is why, like at Dev Camp the other week when we were out there, I was talking to guys like Jabril Toure, Oscar
Yep.
Pedersen, not because I think they're necessarily coming back to Belleville as much as they've been there before, right? So, um, but again, that's something that we're trying to teach our fans here too, is to follow those players right through. Just because they leave Belleville doesn't mean they've left the organization, and they're just a couple hours down the road.
What do you think it would be? We talked about this, off the air about because the Senators had traded away their first round pick for many years in 2022, 23, even one of their two last or 20 in 2024. The team it doesn't have a bunch of, young prospects that have kind of been stars in Belleville really since the 2019-2020 season when I alluded to with Josh Norris and Drake Batherson and others. You talked about Yakemchuk. Obviously, he could make the team out of camp. He was great in last year's camp. You'd think if he plays that well this year, he's probably on the team, at least for some period of time up in Ottawa. But let's say, not that you're wishing it on him, you want him to be an Ottawa Senator, but let's just
Yep.
say for whatever reason he comes down to Belleville. How important do you think that would be for just the organization in Belleville and the fan base and everything to kind of have a young star defenseman as a seller and a way for getting eyeballs and attention and everything else?
I think it's pretty important. I think you do kind of rely on the Sens fans to be the ones that you sell a prospect to, rather than
Hmm.
selling that team type thing. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's your one of your first round picks. He's basically kind of like we a guy like Tyler Clevin. Um, Ridley Gregg, who you mentioned, who was down here for a year. Like, forget what it means to us as a team. I think for the player, it's a really important thing. Like, as much as I say I don't like to put guys down to the AHL before they're down there, I believe that every player, unless they are an exception, should play a full season in the American League
Yeah.
before they go to the NHL. I mean, look at the examples. You know what I mean? There's countless. Like start with Drake Batherson and go from there.
Yeah.
Nick Paul is a huge example I would use, as well as one of those guys that we basically saw develop in Belleville, and unfortunately, with the way things go, moved on from the organization. But a player that got his foundation as a professional with the Senators and in Belleville.
Hmm. I guess like how much do you think it is like these days like and how much do you think the Senators it sounds like they're very wary or very attuned to the fact that they want to make that connection between both those teams, right? And how important do you think that is for development now where it is like you're doing similar systems and similar concepts and just having a link between the two where you're not just thrown, and I'm not saying this was the case last year or in the past, but that emphasis on bridging those two, the AHL team and the NHL team, to be like the AHL team really fostering players to be ready to play, as Steve Sayers always says, like the Senators type of hockey.
Yeah, again, I think that's our job. It's as the American Hockey League has developed over its 90 years. It's the 90th season in the AHL this year.
Hmm.
You've seen the league change, right? You've seen um, it's gone from a place that guys play at the end of their career because they've lost a step, to truly a league of development. The average age of our team last year, I think, was 24 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, you guys would see it firsthand when those players come up from Belleville and they step on the ice in Ottawa. Do they look like they're out of place? Not typically. And if they
Mm.
do, it's because they're a young player who is learning the NHL game, et cetera. I think that is what every AHL franchise has to do is, like I said earlier, kind of modeling everything after how the NHL club does things, making players as comfortable as they can be that it doesn't seem like as big of a deal when they get the call up as much as it is. And I think our coaching staff has done a great job with that. Something I'll be trying to remind players heading into this year on the the media side of things, because again, Ottawa is getting more eyeballs on it. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
we don't have a pile of in-house media that come to our games, but that's kind of the point, right? Get comfortable doing the interviews now, get comfortable getting out in the community now, and then when you go to Ottawa and Alex Adams and 18 other reporters and seven cameras are in your face, you're going to be fine because you've done this already a million
Yeah.
times, right?
No, it's and you know what? I will give you some flowers because the two guys that the last 2 years have kind of come in and up and down a fair bit was Angus Crookshank, who obviously left the organization. Great dude. I love Angus Crookshank as a person, and even Stephen Halliday this year. And like they were great with us, and you could tell the ease. They weren't too apprehensive or anything like that. And it's good to see. And obviously, as a media person, you like it when people are just more open and not too guarded. And obviously, if they're nervous and stuff, that makes sense. They're in the NHL. They have a bunch of cameras in their face. I would probably be
Yeah.
nervous if that happened to me too, at 22 years old or whatever the case may be. But it's good to see. And definitely like with Halliday, just love that kid. He's a hoot. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping for just maybe for content's sake that he makes the league or play some games with Ottawa this year. I'm not gonna make you get in trouble with your bosses, but I'm just gonna ask you a little bit about the Senators themselves in Ottawa and how would you
Yeah.
just like evaluate, or maybe that might be too strong a word in this case, but just what have you made of Steve Staios' moves this summer and where the team in Ottawa is going into next season?
Yeah, I mean, again, I do kind of look at it maybe a little more, maybe a little more one-sided, but still kind of up up the middle. Like I think he's done a great job. I think they've addressed the things that need to be addressed, which is, uh, goal number one for a general manager in the offseason. I think if I put the focus down on us as well. They've made some signings that whether they end up in the AHL or the NHL, your Arthur Kalyevs, your Ollie Lexells, those types of guys, like those will be impact players in Belleville, if not role players or better in the NHL. So I think he's done a good job at addressing what needs to be addressed, and I think again, I'll use the word comfortable, but making the fans kind of comfortable with how he operates and the moves he makes. There hasn't been a whole lot that has made you scratch your head to this point. And again, if you look at the track record and all of the reasons that he was hired, he knows how to win. It seems like we're on that path. So yeah, I've been really happy with the offseason so far. A few more holes to fill down here, and who knows what other magic him and Matt Turek, our general manager in Belleville, will be able to work. But yeah, I think it's been a good offseason for the.
I'm just curious for you, like like how much do you take from the fact that Staios has added these guys that are those like almost tweener NHL, AHL players that, he's invested in the Kalievs and the Ollie Excells, that guys that can really come up and make a difference, that I think in the past maybe, weren't being added to the organization.
Yeah, if you look at our roster over the years, I think that's something you've definitely seen more of in the last couple of seasons, and I think that's widespread across the league. Like learning systems and how to be a pro, et cetera, is important for young players, but so is winning. And it doesn't seem like you win in the AHL without those types of players. Garrett Pilon is our captain coming in again this year, and he won a Calder Cup with the Hershey Bears a few years ago, and he'll tell you, the same thing. Go look at that roster. Go look at the Abbotsford Canucks roster. They just won Calder Cup this year, right? So you need those guys, and it can be tough to find them, right? It can be tough to convince a guy to even take a two-way contract to
Yeah.
come. and play. I mean, there's a handful of guys that were qualified on our team that haven't signed deals yet, right? So either they need to get signed or holes need to be filled,
Mhm.
and they're not the only four guys around the league in that position, obviously. So yeah, it's extremely important and extremely exciting to know that you have these kind of again impact players in the AHL that can really make a difference and put on an exciting show for your fans. I.e. Zach McEwen. He's electric when he is in Belleville,
Yeah.
and again,
Huh.
good player, fantastic NHL player as well. But like in this league, he flips a switch and
Huh.
he's incredible. So you need those type of guys.
Very off topic, but do you like the nickname Footy?
Yeah, it is what it is. Do you have an alternate? Do you have another one
No, no, I
that
just
would
I just
work
find it
better?
interesting because I see because you've done the footnotes, which I really like. I love that on the broadcasts. I see the
Uh,
foot behind you. You can see the clock that says foot. So
yeah, I'm attached to my name, I suppose. You got
yeah,
to lean into what makes you unique, right? So
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
that's kind of it. Yeah, yeah, I like it. I would say there are probably fewer people that know me by my actual name
Huh.
than know me as Footy. Like I
Does
don't.
anyone ever call you David
My
outside of your
wife?
wife? Outside of your
No,
wife? That's
that's
no.
it. My wife
Right.
and the rest of my family, basically. Yeah,
That's funny.
that's it.
So maybe before I let you go,
Yeah,
and thanks again for doing this. And I'm curious for you because I know, you a little bit now. Over the course of the year, we kind of got to know each other, and obviously you alluded to it at the Open, but we're doing some games for TSN, doing the WHL finals. What was that for you, just being on TSN, being on national television? How cool of a moment was that for you?
yeah, the coolest. I don't. There's not many more than that. And some people might look at it and go, "Oh, well, it's just a WHL game. So what?" I've never taken that approach. I've always looked at the product as the product, and for me, it's more about who I'm working for, whether that again that's a pro team, a major league team, or a network. And in this case, it's one of the largest sports broadcasting companies in the world, obviously in Canada, and a station that I've watched every day of my life since I had a TV in my house, right? So definitely one of the coolest things that I've been able to be a part of. And Nate Thompson, former senator, was my partner there that
Yeah.
week, and he was fantastic to work with, and Mike Marshall and the whole TSN crew were incredible. Yeah, I hope I get to do it again. It's probably the easiest way to put it.
What was kind of going through your mind in like the first game, and you go on and you see the red lights and everything, like were you like holy shit, or did you feel
Yeah,
pretty in the moment that
yeah. So I got to do the U17s for TSN back in November. So that was kind of like my TSN debut. So I maybe had a little bit more of the nerves there. But I was working with Craig Button, so the nerves went away almost immediately because he's amazing.
yeah,
So like
Craig's awesome.
I didn't deal with it so much the second time, but the first time, um, it was something I wasn't even thinking about. We record our intro, uh, and then they're playing it back on the monitor before the game starts. So you're getting it with the full treatment. And when that World Junior music starts, because it was an international game, that's kind of when it clicked. And I was just kind of like, oh yeah, oh shit, this is the real thing. Like this is we're here. I know that music, and yeah, I was pretty fired up at that
Cool.
point.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, I think the difference with the WHL gig was just that you're kind of embedded in it for 10 days, and you get a little bit more of a sense of the regular life, I suppose, and what it's like to be deep in a series like that. But no, never strays from my mind when I'm doing stuff like that, where I am and what I'm doing. And yeah, you got to live in those moments because who knows how many of them you're going to get, right? So, like I said, hopefully more, but yeah, for now, I'll think about that probably every day.
How good's Gavin McKenna?
Well, and I would go to the series where he plays one game and gets hurt. So like
Yeah.
of the 5 games of the series, he was 100% for one of them. But even in game 5 on one leg, he was like the third best player on the ice still. So he's pretty good. It's kind of a shame, for the folks in Medhat, but I think they got to look at it as they got 3 quality years with that kid, and you can't. I don't think with the state of uh, college hockey or junior hockey right now, you can argue with anybody for making that decision
Yeah.
to jump ship and go to school, and the NIL stuff is not too shabby for some of those kids either. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
he
think
is really
I
good
think
though.
he's having a good payday this year, and he'll get another one next year in the NHL as well. But
Yeah,
before I let you go, I guess what advice would you have to people who are coming up, either it's journalism, sport media, broadcasting, like what are some tips or advice that you'd give to them just coming up that want to be the next footy?
yeah. Well, I don't think there'll be many of those.
Well, I
I
don't
mean,
know.
to go back to kind of like the advice that I was always given, right? It's don't say no to an opportunity. If there's something that you're interested in and after, put yourself out there. Get yourself involved. Nobody's going to come to you. You have to go to them. So those are kind of 3 big ones. I think do good work. It sounds silly, but like some people get their jobs and they don't do good work. Like do your best. That's what you're there to do. Represent your outlet, yourself, etc. To the best that you can. Have as much fun as you can because you will hate your life if you don't have fun at work.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, I think like those are kind of the big ones, really. It's just try to, yeah, it's basic life shit, right? Like do your best, be a good person, and hopefully things will work out for you if you're working hard and um, not waiting
Well,
for stuff to come to you, right?
Well, I can definitely say that you're a nice guy. You work hard, and
Oh,
it's been
jeez.
cool to get to know you the past year. I'm excited to see you hopefully more around the rink. I'm hoping to go down to Belleville a couple times this year as well, and it's been really cool just to chat, to get to know a little bit more about your career, the process, everything. So, thanks so much for doing this, Footy. Is there anything you want to kind of plug? Typically, I do this with journalists who are like, "Oh,
Sure.
I write for whoever or whatever." But is there something in Belleville or with the Senators or anything else that you kind of want people to know about before I let you go?
Yeah, just that we're here. That it's not far from Ottawa. It's not far from Toronto. If you're a Sens fan that listens to the show, like make the trip and come watch the prospects because it the hockey is outstanding, and you never know when you might get to be this close to some of these guys again before they make the jump. So our season tickets are on sale. Our schedule is out. You can hear our games throughout the season on our Belleville Sens Entertainment Network and AHL TV on Flow Hockey, at Belleville Sens on social media. I'm at Footy on the Air, but I'm not super active most days. And yeah, just BellevilleSens.com for anything Belleville Sens related.
Exactly. If you ever need any footnotes about the Senators, or Belleville Senators, here's your guy. But thanks so much, Footy, for taking the time and doing this. I wish you the best of luck during the season. I'm sure I'll see you around. But thanks again for doing this, and maybe when next year or in a couple years when Belleville wins the Calder Cup, I'll need to have you on again. So. We'll,
Yeah,
we'll, we'll make it a championship reunion or something like that. So
yeah.
yeah,
If not before then, appreciate you having me on, man. Really
awesome.
do. Thanks for this.